Hello, welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Sunday, December 1st. It is officially December. Football has arrived in the NFL. Week 13 season is flying by. Couple big matchups coming up again this weekend. We've already got 4 games done this week as well, 3 on Thanksgiving, and of course, Black Friday between the Chiefs and the Raiders. Another week, lots to discuss. DiMari, how's it going, man?
I'm pretty good. I mean, when your team wins on Thursday, you got nothing really to sweat about. So, oh yeah, December football is here. I mean, and how we talked about off air, you see some teams kind of separating themselves. You see which teams are for real, which teams are tanking, which teams I make a push. So it's an important slate of football today for a lot of teams out there. We got some great matchups. So I'm excited to get into it, and I'm excited to recap Thursday as we look forward to what's also going to go on today.
Yeah, 100%. And this is episode 40 of the Inside the Huddle podcast. Make sure to please like and subscribe. Appreciate all the support as always. Yeah, we're going to get into the Thanksgiving games first, get into that news, and then we'll get into some preview stuff and all that good stuff. Obviously, our underdog picks a little bit later on for today's slate of games. But we got to start with the Chicago Bears and Matt Eberflus. They go into Detroit, make it a interesting game. It looked like there early on, Detroit was kind of just going to run away with it. 16-0, they were up. Looked like they could even make it more before the half prior to Jahmyr Gibbs fumbling in the red zone. If that doesn't happen, you maybe make the case that it's 23-0 potentially. So looked like they were going to run away with that game. Bears then come back, slowly kind of come back into it, go into the fourth quarter down 23-7. 2 big scoring drives. Keenan Allen with a touchdown. DJ Moore with a touchdown. Another big game for him. Keenan Allen had 2 touchdowns, actually. And then you go late into this game and just awful clock management. Probably one of the worst clock managements, probably one of the worst coaching jobs in that situation that we've seen all year. And it resulted in the Bears firing a coach in season for the first time in a 100+ year franchise history. So that just shows you how bad it was, because this is not something the Bears have typically done in the past, as they fall now to 4-8, losers of 6 in a row after being 4-2. And this is another one of these losses for the Bears that's just like painful. Whether, they've had a couple bad losses earlier in the year. The Hail Mary feels like the Hail Mary ever since that happening. Everything has just gone downhill since. But you have 27 seconds. You have a timeout left, and they let like 20 seconds blow off before they even get a playoff. Then they get the playoff, throw downfield, game's over. Like, what in the world was happening? What was your thoughts on that whole situation?
It was pathetic. I mean that's the best way to describe it. It was pathetic. I'm wondering how many grandmas and aunties we had who don't watch football probably yelling at the TV to call a timeout. I think everybody in America knew that you needed to call a timeout in that situation,
Yep.
and it just was terrible management. And at the end of the day, I do think Eberflus's time was done anyways. But I just think that almost like the nonchalant, somewhat form of ignorance in the press conference after the game made it so much worse. We're like, I think I handled it properly. I did what I was supposed to do. Like, it was done the right way. It was completely botched. Like you said, 20 seconds ran off the clock. Worst case, you call a timeout. If you throw something to the sidelines, you hope to get it. If not, you have your special teams ready to go. You throw the ball middle of the field. You can't get down the clock yet, obviously, with it being fourth now. You rush everybody out, you get a kickoff. Just completely to not snap the ball with 4 seconds left, it's ridiculous. And it's not all on Eberflus. Caleb Williams, other vets also knew there was a timeout. So a lot of other guys could have called a timeout, but I think that definitely just shows the type of season that the Bears are having. Like I said, 4-2 to start. Now we've lost 6 straight. It's just everything around him has been collapsing after that Washington game. But I agree. And we even said it last week. It was time for him to go. Time for a fresh start. And that organization, I don't know. It's just like they will never bounce back from picking Trubisky over Mahomes. And this is yet another year where it shows that the Chicago Bears are just a very unserious team.
Yeah, 100%. And like, Worst case scenario is you call the timeout in that situation. You give yourself what, 25 seconds ish maybe left, and then you have a chance there to either work the sidelines. Worst case scenario, you fall in bounds. But even at that point, let's say it's you fall in bounds with 15 seconds left, you can get the kicking unit out there without having to use a timeout, because at that point it would have been fourth down, because I believe it was a third and like
Yeah.
forever when
Yes.
they botched it. So even if they got 15 yards, let's say, and they had 15 seconds left, they could have gotten the field goal unit out there in time. It's happened before where they could have kicked the field goal, got it up there in 15 seconds, forced overtime. Instead, you see Caleb Williams was like this. You see him, he was like trying to get the play set, and it was just. And I'm not, obviously, neither of us are Bears fans, but that's one of those moments, just being a football fan, that like you were frustrated. Like, what that we were stolen, it feel like, of a really good ending. Field goal to force overtime, whatever, field goal that misses, whatever it was. And we were robbed of a really good ending. We were robbed of a really big comeback from the Bears because Eberflus is incompetent. And to be honest, I don't even know why. And like you said, you made a great point. He wasn't going to be here much longer. This is basically, fire him 5 weeks early, give yourself a chance to start your head coaching search early, and Eberflus kind of find his next job, wherever that might be. He should have been fired after last year, for being honest. He shouldn't have been brought back this year. Eberflus was well over his time here. I mean, he went 3-14 in year one, and then he went 7-10 in year two. He won 10 games in 2 years. That's terrible. 10 games in 2 seasons. And then you pair him with a rookie quarterback. Now Caleb Williams has got to have a new head coach in year two. I know we talked about this a lot, but I hate when franchises have to change coaches after their first year with a rookie quarterback, especially a premium pick like Caleb Williams. It never works out well. It never does. Some cases it does, but most of the time it doesn't. Like we saw this developing. Eberflus was not a good coach. He wasn't. And he wasn't going to get any better this year. And the team collapsed. The team quit on him. And now he doesn't know how to work the clock. Now you have to go into year two with a new coach, second-year quarterback. I will never understand like the obsession with some of these franchises of keeping coaches 1 year too long. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean 100%, because Caleb Williams has came in and completely have just learned the Eberflus way of things. Now that changes. You go into the offseason, and it's just, I feel like everything, you're working under pressure, because 17 games. Well, he's fired now, so we can't even say 17. But all the offseason, all the games up until this point, you're just doing everything the Eberflus way, and his system, his handprint on things. So now they get the interim coach is going to come in and coach for these next few games, and then he might not even be the guy next year. So you're about to learn whatever he has in place, and then we come next season and you get a whole new head coach, completely different. I agree with you. It just doesn't make any sense. And I mean, I know you're pretty stern on it because you said it last week, and I agreed as well last week too, that he was a year too long for him to get fired. Now you're trying to coach up these guys, and the vets like DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, we're just like, man, another coach, another system. Like, I'm tired of this. I don't want to do this again. Kind of feel bad for him. I mean, we really had high expectations for this team. I honestly thought we were talking about a playoff team and the offensive rookie of the year, and that was looking good through 6 weeks. But now everyone's going a new direction. I mean, I don't know what the Bears, again, very unserious organization, and all they're doing is hurting their rookie QB more than helping them in the long run.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he went 14-32 in his 3 years as a coach. That's 46 games. That's a 304 winning percentage. He barely had a winning percentage over 200, like in the 200s. That's awful. And losing those games, losing the game the way they did against Green Bay, missing the kick, losing the game they did against Washington. Those are the type of losses where you go into that locker room and everybody's just looking right at the coach. Those are the type of losses, like losing on a Hail Mary. That's awful. You've got to be more disciplined. You've got to be better than that. What, Tyreek Stevenson? You can't be celebrating before the. I mean, that was the end of the Bears season, if we're being honest. Like that moment, if there was a picture that could just encapsulate the Bears season, that would be it. Him celebrating before the Hail Mary.
And by the way, he was on the sideline Thursday, tripping players up on the sideline, talking trash. That was the Jameson Williams altercation where Williamson threw the ball at him. Like, just undisciplined is the perfect way to say it. And I mean, I know it's not the whole team, it's select guys, but it's just like that type of energy carries, that type of energy shifts, and that kind of just shows like there's no command in certain aspects of the locker room whatsoever. Because you got guys that were, this, like, you're not a college guy, and this isn't about Stevenson. I'm about to tie it back into the team, but you got a guy on the sideline. You're in the NFL, dude. You're not in college. Why are we doing immature things like this? You blew the Washington game, then you threatened to not play no more because you got benched. Now you're on the sideline tripping up players from the opposing team, completely away from the defense, by the way, where you should be with your helmet off. I don't get it, but it just shows. Again, this is how the Bears season has been, and that does come down to coaching. That does come down to discipline. That does come down to them just not having it figured out. So, I mean, for Chicago, and we talked about this with both of our teams, they need somebody that's going to step in there and be stern and just, no foolishness tolerance. And that way we can probably see a different Bears team. But another Eberflus type guy, whoever they bring in, who that's going to be, they're just not going to be good and figure it out until they get, I hate to say it, but like someone who runs it like a boot camp, because it's not working out for them.
Yeah, 100%. And Thomas Brown now will get the opportunity here at as an interim head coach after a couple weeks of calling plays. Of course, took over at the OC, so now he's taking over as interim. So this guy's just getting promoted. Next, he'll be like the interim GM, I guess. At this point, he's just keep moving his way up. But and supposedly reports have said that the Bears are going to give Thomas Brown like a real shot at this. So you look at the remaining schedule. They've got 5 games left. If they go, obviously they'll look around. They're not just going to, let's say they go 4-1 over the next 5. They're not just going to hand him the job. They're going to interview, of course, other candidates. But if they go 4-1, team seems to buy in. You mentioned kind of running it more like a boot camp. If he comes in and lays his foundation and the players respond quickly, he could be in line. But I think there's 2 coaches that I really like for Chicago, and I'll ask you on this as well. I think they need an offensive mind. They need a young offensive mind that can work with a young quarterback in Caleb Williams. Cliff Kingsbury, who has connections with Caleb Williams from USC last year, I like him as a potential candidate. And then Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson's probably top. The only problem I have with Kingsbury is everywhere he goes, second half of the season, they just fall off. You're seeing it now with Washington. And that's kind of what's happening in Chicago, if we're being honest. Like, they were 4-2, and now they're falling off. That's the last thing Bears fans want, is them to start 5-2, 5-3 next year, and then look up and they're 6-10. But any other names that you like?
Well, for the 2 that you just said, funny, I was just out eating with my dad yesterday, and we're talking about Cowboys coaches for replacements, and those are 2 that he threw out. I was like, I'm hoping we get one of them. So if the Bears don't, hopefully we do. Hopefully the Bears don't even look at them, and Dallas does. But I think if I had to pick one, I think Kingsbury would probably land that job just because the connection from USC. And it's just hard for me to see. And I know guys want opportunities, but it's hard for me to see Ben Johnson or even the Lions letting Ben Johnson kind of go inside division. So I think Kingsbury would be a great fit. And honestly, I don't have any other names. I think I'm going to agree with those 2. And this, again, is back to what we talked about last week. And you just mentioned it. Young, innovative, energetic guy that is going to go in there and win. I know what we said with Ben Johnson was, in Dallas's case of it, is the expectations. For Chicago, there's no expectations. Hey, just come out here and do better than 6-11. That's all we ask for you to do. So, I mean, I think either or would be a great fit. I really see Kingsbury landing that job. But like you said, they do manage to fall apart into the season quite fitting for the Chicago Bears. The way things ended in Arizona, you're kind of just like, I don't know. But
with a young quarterback too.
Yeah, it's almost like deja vu. But again, I think it doesn't get any better than him and Williams. We've seen what Caleb Williams was able to do with a Kingsbury system. And obviously, it is very good in the NFL, even though Washington does seem to forget how to play football all of a sudden. But, I mean, that offense is still – I think our offense is still pretty good. I think they just had some bad weeks. So I think that's a great fit, and I honestly won't be surprised if that is where he is coaching next season. I can see it happening.
Yeah, and the Bears are at a point too, and this isn't just joking, but like all seriousness, they're at a point too where they can't really do worse than Eberflus this offseason. Like they can't. I think the coach, because even Eberflus, the minute he came in here, it was kind of odd. It was a weird hire. It didn't make much sense. Whoever they hire next, whether it's Kingsbury, whether it's Ben Johnson, they're going to get praised for it because it's going to be a young, innovative offensive mind with a second-year quarterback who desperately needs better coaching than he has right now. And Caleb Williams, I mean, he hasn't had a bad rookie season. For all things considered, he hasn't played terrible. I mean, he's got 14 touchdowns. He's got, 2,600 plus yards. I think he's only thrown like 5 picks. So the interceptions relatively, for the most part, have been down. Obviously, like you said, the first 6 weeks were great. I mean, he did have that stretch of games recently where he didn't throw a touchdown for what was it, like 4 games, I think it was, until the Minnesota game. So he kind of went silent, but I mean, we've seen much worse rookie seasons out of quarterbacks. We've seen guys throw more interceptions than they do touchdowns. He's far from that. So we'll see. We'll see what here we are again with the Bears. Figuring out every year. Every year there's something with the Bears.
It's I don't know. Ever since what's his name? Was it Cody Parkey? Ever since that double doink.
Yeah, the double doink.
You start to look back at things where it's like, this is a canon event. That double doink had to happen. Taking Trubisky over Mahomes, it had to happen. These were canon events, and they just haven't found a way to bounce back from it.
Yeah. There is certain moments for franchises that symbolize like a downward spiral. And you're so right. Cody Parkey's double doink was like the start of a 5-year, 6-year just terrible football for the Jets. It was the Victor Cruz 99-yard touchdown. Ever since that, everything's gone downhill, where Rex Ryan covered up their trophies before the game. The Giants, that was a mess. Ever since that, it's been all downhill. There is certain moments, and it feels like that. So they got a lot of work to do. It's tough to come into organizations like Chicago who have not done really much winning at all since the couple years they had under Lovie Smith, where they got to the Super Bowl, they got to the conference title game in 2010 with the couple years with they got there with Cutler that one year. It's been 14 years since they've won a playoff game. So bad shape for sure. They got to figure it out. And that's why I do wonder, while the offensive mind, and we will move on here in a second, but while the offensive mind is probably smart, you do wonder if they go after a culture guy just because of the, like you said, kind of run it more like a boot camp, not let these guys, whether it's celebrating before the Hail Mary, doing stupid stuff on the sidelines. You do wonder, like, if a Kingsbury or a Ben Johnson comes in here, if they can fix that stuff, or if it's more so they need a Vrabel, maybe even like a Brian Flores, somebody like that who is more hard nose. If you're gonna show up day one, show up to the first meeting and basically say, look, if you're gonna mess around, get out of here. I don't want you here. That kind of thing. It'll be, I think they do go after the offensive mind. That's probably smarter, but maybe long term, maybe it's better off to go to a culture guy. But then again, honestly, you don't want to screw Caleb up as either.
I think both Johnson and Kingsbury kind of can bring in that Dan Quinn, Dan Campbell kind of handprint. You look at the guys that they're coaching under. I think it's possible, and something that seems as if like, and you can see it with McVay, you see it with McDaniel. Something about these like young, fun, energetic coaches just carry a level of respect with them that guys just love. I don't think that would be a problem if either one of those two come in, but I do still see your point with Vrabel, or we can use Belichick, for instance, where you kind of know, like, as soon as they walk in the doors, all eyes on me, yes sir, no sir type of thing. And I think either one can work for him. Either way, it works. Well, either direction they go, I mean, I think it works out in Chicago because, like you just said, there's no point of anywhere you can bring it where it's worse than Eberflus. I mean, I can probably go and coach 17 games and get them guys straight. You can call the offense. I think we would do a better job than what has been done. So, yeah, it doesn't get any worse.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's move on here. We'll stay in the NFC North. Packers, Dolphins. I mean, did anybody really see Miami going into Green Bay and winning this game? If you bet on Miami, I'm sorry. You kind of deserve to lose at that point. I don't know if Miami will ever win one of these games. They are 1-8 now, I believe it is, in cold weather games. Not even cold weather. I think just under 50 degrees, which like 40s isn't even that bad. But this is another one of these reminders with Miami where it feels like the whole McDaniel Tua combination just will never go anywhere. You feel that way?
I hate to say it. I really like McDaniel, but yeah, you can't avoid the cold forever.
Yeah, exactly. And, especially when you play in a conference, both conferences, because let's be honest, the NFC, you've got Green Bay, Philly. If the Giants, no, I'm not bringing them up in this conversation. They're 2-10, but there's a lot of cold weather teams in the NFC. Seattle. I mean, if Minnesota's a dome, Detroit's a dome, but you get the point. AFC, KC, Buffalo, heck, even Denver this year. I mean, Baltimore, the whole AFC North. So they are. I just don't know how. And I feel like this falls. Who do you feel as it falls more on? Is it Tua you feel the cold weather struggles, or do you feel it's McDaniel, for whatever reason, can't get the team prepared where they can have success in the cold? Because the players even mentioned it after the game. I forget who it was specifically, but players even mentioned it after the game about they weren't ready for the weather. They weren't prepared for it. They play soft in the cold. It's mind-boggling how a team, they've played in the cold a lot. I mean, they're in a division where they've got to go to Buffalo once a year. They've had to go there in the playoffs. I mean, how are they not adjusted at this point? It's like it's cold weather. It's not like some toxic acid weather or acid rain that's falling down where it's something unforeseen. Oh my God, you're going to Green Bay. It's going to be cold. Oh no.
I don't get it. I mean, even before the game, when they were kind of discussing how Miami prepped for it, and they took this out the good old Tom Brady playbook, you use scuba gear. You go get scuba gear where it keeps you warm, hand warmers, heated benches, the whole, 9 yards, everything you can do. But I want to say it's on McDaniel, but then again, McDaniel, there's only so much you can do. McDaniel does not play inside the lines. And something about Miami, they just start so slow whenever they play in the cold. I don't know what it is, and this might sound crazy, but I honestly think this is the best I've ever seen them play in the cold, and they still fell short. The offense was able to move the ball down the field. Like, they looked okay. They looked all right for what I was expecting. But I mean, for Mike McDaniel, what else can you do? Like, would you want to huddle up like penguins every time out? Hug the guys to keep them warm. I honestly, I don't know what else Miami can do. And even I asked my dad this question. My dad played football up in Iowa, freezing, where he would have to go to Minnesota, other places like that. So kind of just kind of ask, like, what is so different? Obviously, your hands get numb, those type of things. But his point of view of it was just like, when you're playing that type of weather and you are constantly in contact with a guy, like it's punishing when you're hitting the ground is rock hard. Like, you just don't have that same energy to play. And teams, like you mentioned, I mean, when a 6'5" Josh Allen is running into you in frigid weather, those hits are a little harder. When Josh Jacobs, a very punishing back, lowering the shoulder on you, those hits are harder. And you're just like, man, I just want to get out of here. And I think that's Miami's thing. Like that weather drops, and you are constantly taking hits, taking punishing blows. You're kind of to that point where you're just like, honestly, this dropping this one game might not hurt too much. Let's just go ahead and get out of here. And that's what it almost seems like. But they will never win anything until they figure out how to win in the cold or get the number 1 seed. And sorry, Dolphins fans, that just won't be happening. So you're going to have to figure out how to win in the cold, how to prep. But for Miami, I mean, yeah, I'm kind of on track with you where if they don't figure out, how to win at the most important times of football, like we've mentioned, November and beyond, they're never going to equate to anything.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, we just got done talking about Kingsbury and them collapsing. When will the Dolphins ever put together a full season where they don't collapse down the stretch,
It's always December for some.
Yeah.
It's all, and even with it being in December, I mean, Miami here, me personally, I live in Central Florida where it's 55 degrees. If I'm correct, Miami is like 70 right now, and they still can't win down in Miami at this time. So I don't know if weather is obviously a factor, but maybe that's just the Miami way. December time comes around, they're just, it's just kind of overrated. Let's enjoy the holidays. That's almost what it seems like every single year.
Yeah, 100%. And I was just doing a little bit of research. So, 0-7 actually, according to this article here. The Dolphins have lost their last 12 regular season or postseason games in which the temperature at kickoff was 40 degrees or lower. And then later on, it says Miami's most recent victory in a game that began with a temperature of 40 degrees or below was a 34-31 overtime win in Buffalo on December 24th, 2016. That was the last time they've won a game in 40 degrees or lower. Now, with that being said, I want to see. I'm just going to check here. I've got it up. 2016, December 24th. Who were the quarterbacks playing in that game? It was Matt Moore versus Tyrod Taylor.
Jesus.
That's right. That was the Matt Moore year with Gaze where they made the playoffs. I believe, was it Tannehill, I think, got hurt.
Tannehill got hurt.
Remember they went into Pittsburgh and got destroyed.
And Matt Moore got absolutely
killed.
Yes, absolutely wrecked.
He got knocked out.
I believe, yes, it might have been Bud. I feel like it was Bud Dupree. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it was one of them.
It was. I remember that game.
Yeah,
I remember that.
That was the year 2016. That was the season. Pittsburgh. Did they win that game? That wasn't the Blake Bortles year where they lost to. No, that wasn't.
No, that was the Blake Bortles was the following
year. What was who did Pittsburgh lose to divisional round that year? It wasn't the Broncos was a year prior.
I feel like I'm on track, but I feel like I'm off. What's his name? Was that the Jesse James catch that wasn't a catch where you extended, crossed the goal line, ball slipped out? I think that might be.
It might have been
that year, and that's when they lost to New England, if I'm correct.
Yeah, because I think didn't they beat Kansas City?
Yeah,
I think that year because the Kansas City can never win a playoff game before Mahomes. Yeah, and then they lost. Yeah, you're right. To New England.
Yeah,
that was 2016, and in New England, that was the 28-3 year, I think. Yeah. So, but that was the last time. Jay Ajayi.
What a guy.
Take a look at the box score here. Jay Ajayi, or Jay Ajayi, however you pronounce it. He had 32 carries for 206 yards and a touchdown. Huge day for him. Devontae Parker had a touchdown. And Kenny Stills had a touchdown. Last time the Dolphins won a game below 40.
Isn't Kenny Stills like suspended from the NFL right now? That is
he might be.
Or was suspended. That was quite some time. That was
how about this?
That feels like ages ago.
Shady McCoy 128 yards on the ground and a touchdown. And Sammy Watkins, 7 catches, 154 yards and a touchdown.
Goodness.
The Bills were 7-8.
That feels like so long ago. And I think that must have had to be just 1 year before Allen, or was Allen
Yeah.
18?
Allen was 18. The Bills ended their drought 2017 because that was the year they lost to 20. Yeah, just connecting all this. They lost in the wild card game to the Jaguars. That was the Bortles year
Yes.
where they got to the
Yes.
title game. 2017, they
Wow.
made it with Tyrod, ending the drought. 2018 was Allen's rookie year. They missed it. And in 2019, they made it. I believe that was the Houston game. Remember when Allen tried the lateral
Yeah.
and it he was stupid for doing that. They lost that game, and 2020 was they faced the Chiefs. 2021 was the 13 seconds. I don't know. I don't want to just go down the painful Bills playoff losses,
No,
but
but
that's kind of what we're doing.
I just little off track, not too much. I kind of despise Bills fans now that you say that, because it's like they sit there and complain about everything in the world. Like, okay, you went from Tyrod Taylor to Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Like, please
Yeah.
stop complaining.
2020, they lost the conference title. They lost the title game to the Chiefs.
Was
And
that the
then
Stephon Diggs standing on the sideline,
I
standing on the
think that was
field?
I think that was the 13 seconds, I believe.
Okay.
2021 was 13 seconds. 2022 was they lost at home to Burrow. And then last year they obviously lost to the Chiefs. And now what's in store for this season? We'll see.
Jesus.
But yes, that's it. So, yeah, tough loss for Miami. Kind of get back on track here. They've been awful in the cold. They've got to figure something out. I was thinking the other day, you see teams do this for West Coast games. If they're on the East Coast, they go out to the West Coast like a week early. I know Denver did it this year with the Jets. They played the Bucks, and then as opposed to going back to Denver and then flying to Jersey, because that's where they play, they went up to West Virginia, I think it was, and practiced there to kind of stay on East Coast time, as opposed to going 2 hours behind and getting back on East Coast time. I wonder if Miami, if they would ever think about this, and maybe they've already done it, I just don't know about it, but the week they have a cold weather game, like Green Bay, go out there on Monday, practice the entire week in the cold. Maybe. I mean,
Yeah, that's
what
smart.
more can they do? They pack all this cold gear and they still stink. Maybe go out there and practice 3 days in the cold, your Wednesday, Thursday, Friday practice, and maybe that helps. It kind of gets the players to get a feel of, tackling a little bit, kind of gets the feel of obviously playing on the hard ground. The weather, just get a feel of the cold better than going from a 70-degree day in Miami to 20 degrees in Green Bay, 50-degree drop off.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's kind of the only way to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
everything is about practice and repetition at the end of the day. So the closest thing you're going to get to that weather at game time, yeah, just go out there for a few days early, get some practice under your belt, get your body adjusted as much as possible, and yeah, get ready for the game. That's the only answer.
Yeah. Yeah. And as for Green Bay, we talked about them last week, kind of probably the least talked about 9-3 team right now in the NFL. Part of that was they lost to Philly, they lost to Minnesota, they lost to Detroit. So they lost to a 9-2 team, a 9-2 team, and a 11-1 team. So their 3 toughest matchups, they've all lost those games. Part of the reason why they probably haven't gotten much attention. But it's another one of these wins. They keep winning. It's another convincing win. They had a convincing win against San Fran, convincing win against Miami. They keep kind of just plugging along. But now I look at Green Bay, and we talked again a little bit about this last week, but these next 2 weeks, you're going to learn a lot about this Green Bay team. They got Detroit on Thursday night on the road, and then they've got Seattle on the road the week after. So you're going to learn a lot about this team. If they can go in there and maybe win both those games, man, that's huge. If they can go in there and beat Detroit and then at least split. But I think you're going to learn a lot about those games, especially that Seattle game. That might look like a game that they should win, but they probably should win it. They are the better team. But Seattle, if they win today and then they win next week against Arizona, you could be looking at an 8-5 Seahawks team down the stretch. Going to the 12th man is never easy.
Seattle's pesky. They
Yeah.
are one of those teams where for the viewer's sake, let's say they're one of those teams. They're like Vanderbilt if you watch college football, where you're kind of just like, this team isn't really that good. Record wise, it doesn't say they're that good. And then you watch them and it's like, yeah, they're not that good. Like the product they put on the field is not that good, but they just play so well together and they find ways to win, keep games competitive. And that is Seattle. So 12 man is no easy place to go into. So I think that's a huge. This might sound crazy. I think that game is bigger than their game against Detroit.
The Seattle game?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it could be because if they lose to Detroit, the division's pretty much over. So Detroit would then have a 2-game lead up on them. So that Seattle game, depending on how the NFC West shakes out, well, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. I mean, if Seattle were to lose the division, it could shape out between how high or low they finish in the playoff standings, because right now the top 4 is Detroit, Philly, Seattle, Atlanta. And then Minnesota's got pretty locked into that 5 seed. Your 6-7 is kind of, it's going to be some combination of Washington, Arizona, Seattle, right? I would assume maybe Tampa gets in there. But if Seattle were to maybe trip up against Arizona, I mean, I guess it probably won't mean a ton, because at that point the Packers would be 9-3, Seattle would be 6-6, so they'd have a 3-game lead up on them. But yeah, it's a big one for sure, especially if Green Bay wants to get into that 5 seed. They want to jump Minnesota, which they do have one more game against them.
It sounds crazy. It's like, okay, well, you got the one loss team in division and then Green Bay is right behind them. How can this game in Detroit, how can this game in Seattle mean more than this game in Detroit for division purposes? And you just said it. They want that 5 seed. And why I say that is we see a lot of teams, for instance, I'm going to use Dallas. You're 12-5 the last few seasons, and you're at that 5 seed, and you're just like, man, we're so, like, our record is so good to the point we should not be a 5 seed. Like, we should be up there at 2, 3, 4, just because of how good we've been. And you kind of look back at some of these games where you're like, okay, well, if this would have went differently, things might have shaped up different. And very tough environment in Seattle. Obviously, as that 5 seed, you're going to be on the road for the most part. You're not going to be in the Dome. You're not going to be in Detroit. You're not going to be in Minnesota come playoff time. Like, you're going to be on the road in these very tough environments. Whereas also Seattle's case, cold and rainy a lot of the time. So, like, how are you going to bounce back and play against a team like that where you're not used to certain conditions, certain atmospheres? Detroit, it's easy. You go in there, you nice little warm dome, you know what I mean? But Seattle is really going to kind of show how good that football team is and how good they're going to be in January. So that's just why I think that game's more important. I know my ball knowledge has been questioned the last few weeks, but just further explanation of what I meant by that.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. And Green Bay, just in general, it's a tough test for them, because the big knock on them, I guess, this year is you look at the 3 hardest games, the 3 hardest teams they've had to play. They've all lost those games. So what are they? Are they a team that kind of, I don't want to say beats up on bad teams, because they have beaten Arizona. They beat them up pretty good. They beat the Rams, and they beat Houston. Those aren't bad teams. They beat San Fran, albeit without Purdy, but I wouldn't say the Niners are a bad football team. I mean, they're pretty average, I would say, but yeah, I mean, two tough road games. If you come out of that 0-2,
it says a lot about your team.
Yeah, it says a lot about that. Screams wild card exit.
100%.
Especially if you've got to go on the road, which they will, because they're not going to win a division. So we'll see. See how it all plays out. As for the other Thanksgiving game, Giants, Cowboys running the table. 10-7, Cooper Rush. Cowboys run the table, win 5 in a row or 7 in a row at that point, but 5 more. Get to 10-7. Get to a wild card game. Would Dak come back if they got to like the NFC title game? Would Dak come back?
No, he's done.
He's done.
He's completely done.
So it'd just be Cooper Rush in a dream.
I guess so. But I don't see that happening. I mean, Cincinnati, I'm looking at that schedule, is very favorable, and how the defense is playing, you're just like they can pull a few more out. But I just don't see a world where they beat Cincinnati. I know record says a lot, but right now, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase to that Bugatti outside that like trap house meme, that's been them too. I just don't see a way where we beat Cincinnati, and Tampa. Tampa can go either way. We're not running the table. They've been playing better ball on the defensive side. The offensive side still looks pretty bad, but it's kind of frustrating because you're kind of watching these games and you're like, this is similar to that defense. Obviously, this defense is worse still, but this defense is more similar to the one that we've had the last few seasons before Dan Quinn left. If we'd have had this defense with Dak playing, how would the season look? It just can't. Yeah. It's a Canaan event. It's all a Canaan event. But I mean, all I can say, I guess, before I kind of let you get into some more things, is I'm kind of happy to see the team has not quit, even though I wanted them to tank. But kind of happy seeing them like team hasn't quit. They're still playing for pride, and they're getting it done without Dak Prescott, without a healthy CeeDee Lamb, without Trayvon Diggs, without Zach Martin, like all the injuries bearing down there. They're finding ways to win. So I guess there's a little bit of proud fandom in me.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. I would be too. You guys are not laying down. You're not quitting. There's still, while he's probably pretty much a goner, there's still obviously somewhat of faith and trust in Mike McCarthy within the locker room. You don't think so?
Okay. Maybe so. I guess what I wanted to say was, at
not
this
like
point, this is Mike Zimmer. Yeah, no, fans are done. This is Mike Zimmer trying to save his job. I think McCarthy is gone regardless of what's going on. But I lied. There's some faith in him amongst the organization, amongst the team, because they talk about it every game. Michael Parsons says it every time, in an interview. So I think
at least against the players, they haven't fully quit. I mean, you just watch the Jets. They've quit on everything. Then I've quit on them. So it's one big happy family. But no, all seriousness though, I mean, like teams that have quit on their coach, I would say the Jaguars have quit on Peterson. They are not even trying. They're not competitive. I don't even know if the Jets are in their own category, because the Jets, they don't have a GM or a coach right now. So, like I said, they've quit on pretty much everything at this point. They've even quit on Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I think a lot of the locker room's kind of looking at Rodgers like, hey, man, you're supposed to come in here and change things, and you're certainly far from a solution right now. So there's so many issues there. I don't want to go down the Jets rabbit hole, but I mean, look, they're finding ways to win. And I will also say this. The Dallas Cowboys are another reminder of how important it is to have a solid backup. Because let's say in a world where, like, Cooper Rush, you would say is a solid backup, right? He's solid.
Yeah,
he's not a starter.
He's good enough when the defense is going to hold your opponent under 18, but 19 plus, he's Zach Wilson.
Yeah, that's kind of most of the backup quarterbacks. Is if the defense does their job, he can go out there and put up 23 points. Yeah. He can do that. He's not going to light it up and put up 35. That Washington game was, well, the Turpin touchdown, he only technically put up, I mean, he had that was
Turpin.
Turpin had the touchdown.
And Wanye Thomas also on a onside kick scooped and scored and took it back.
Yeah. So how many points did the offense actually put up then? 34
20.
minus 20. Yeah,
20.
So even that game, it was like, for the most part, other than the Terry McLaurin not garbage time, but It wasn't
was
garbage
garbage
time.
time.
It was pretty much
No,
garbage time. Yeah.
it can
Other
go either
than
way.
yeah,
Some
other
can
than the
argue
Perry,
garbage time, but
yeah,
sorry.
basically garbage time. Either way, if none of the craziness at the end of the game happens, they're walking out of there with pretty much like a 20-17 victory, and that's kind of what you expect. And then the Giants are just so bad. Obviously, they found a way to win. They pulled away late there, but that's the importance of a backup quarterback. Like, let's say that Prescott was only going to miss 4 games. Rush goes out there and has you 2-2, which is perfectly fine. Now, at this point in the season, you obviously, considering they lost 5 in a row and all that stuff, 2-2 obviously wouldn't be good enough. Maybe it would if Dak was returning 5-7. You'd probably like your chances more to run the table, but either way, that's besides the point. It just shows that good quality backup, something that my team didn't have last year. You can kind of be a 500 team, stay afloat until your starter comes in. And as from the Giants' perspective, not really get into the Giants because we talked about that, but more so Daniel Jones. I mean, you see the picture of him with the Vikings, the Vikings hat on.
It's so out of place.
It's so weird. If you would have told somebody, I saw this on Twitter the other day. If you would have told somebody, like if you would have showed somebody that image in January of 2023, after they beat the Vikings on the road, if you would have showed somebody that image, I mean, say, look, this is the future. This is going to be Thanksgiving weekend 2024. I mean, I would have thought you were crazy. Anybody would have thought you were crazy. But here we are. Daniel Jones to the Vikings. What are your thoughts?
I honestly don't get it. I really don't get it from the Viking standpoint of this, because you got JJ McCarthy. So
Yeah.
Darnold, he has to be your starting moving forward. What direction are you going in? Are you trading McCarthy during the draft to some team that wants a young quarterback that didn't get one, or maybe somebody wants to draft up? Like, you didn't draft JJ first round to be a third string quarterback. You're not making Daniel Jones a third string quarterback. So I really don't know what the Vikings are doing. I guess we'll figure out in April. But for Daniel Jones' sake, I mean, I honestly liked having him in New York. At least that was 2 games I knew where, hey, I probably don't got to sweat this game today. We probably should come out with a win. But I kind of, in a way, feel bad for the guy because they draft, everything. And you talked about this all the time. Of course, you being up in the area as well, where the media, like, there's no choice but to hear the New York/New Jersey media. You can't avoid it. And for Daniel Jones, I know it was tough because you're hearing all these people talking about you. You got Dak Prescott money on your first extension, and you're nowhere on that same level. Media is bashing you. Fans are booing you, leaving the stadium. Like, I honestly feel so bad for him. Wasn't an ideal situation. I know he didn't play great, but then again, you look at the organization where they got rid of your best option for success in Saquon. And then they did draft you Neighbors, but you don't have weapons. They draft you Jalen Hyatt, who had 1 good season in Tennessee. You don't have a tight end. Like, Ingram is no longer there, and Darren Waller retires to do music. Like, it's been bad for Daniel Jones. I feel so bad for him. That organization failed him. And again, end of the day, he did not play great whatsoever. But I mean, it's almost like the Carolina thing. Like, at what point do we kind of point fingers at the owners and the coaches? Because nobody can be successful in New York. Sorry, on either team right now. It's all a dumpster fire. It's no way. Whether you're in Gotham green and black or you are in whatever those generation, whatever jerseys are, no one's going to be good in New York right now. I feel bad for Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I mean, New York football is probably going through its roughest stretch ever. Not even going through the rough. It's not even a stretch. It's basically a decade ever since the Giants won their Super Bowl back in 2012 that season, or the 2011 going into the 2012 Super Bowl. It was the new year. Ever since that, the Giants have won 1 playoff game. Jets haven't like I said, 2010, as we all know, they've been terrible, especially recently. I mean, last year was awful with the way it ended for the Jets, the way it ended for the Giants. You look at the Jets and the Giants records, not even just overall, just how early the seasons are over, right? Like you look at these records, like the Giants 4-13, 6-10, 4-12, 5-11, 3-13, 6-11 last year, 2-10. And then you look at some of these Jets records, and it's 3-8, 7-10, 7-10, 4-13, 2-14, 7-9, 4-12, 5-11, 5-11, 10-6, and still don't make the playoffs. You look at, I mean, they're two non-competitive organizations that have a lot of problems. Now, I've said this, I would still bring back Dable if I was the Giants, just so he can work with a young quarterback, because I do think Dable wanted no part of Daniel Jones, no part of it. And I'm kind of split on the whole Daniel Jones thing. Now, I understand your point with how they did him wrong. And I sort of get that towards the end. Like, they should have just gotten rid of him after last year, because all offseason, we saw it on Hard Knocks. They didn't want him. They did not want him. They were actively searching to try and trade for a quarterback, trade up for a quarterback in the draft. Joe Shane on Hard Knocks, I forget who it was talking to. It might have been I forget who it was. It was one of the general managers, and he's like, oh, it must be nice at not having to look for a quarterback. While
yes, I remember that.
Yeah, Daniel Jones was still under contract, and he was actively going around basically saying, we need a quarterback. So that part, I do sort of feel bad for him from that perspective, because they quit on him before this season even started. You remember the meeting they had where they were going into the draft? It was draft day, and Joe Shane is in the room with Dable and all those guys, and they're like, look, if a quarterback doesn't fall to us that we like at 6, we're going to go playmaker and build around Daniel. And Dable's just sitting there about to like scream. He did not want any part of him. So they quit on him. They should have just wiped the slate clean. If we're being honest, if they weren't good enough to get a quarter, and they're still tanking, but going into the season, they should have just rolled with like Locke or somebody other than Jones. They should have gotten rid of him, said, look, you need a fresh start. But there is also the perspective of, and this is sort of where I lean a lot too. I was never a big Daniel Jones believer. I hated the draft pick from the start. I didn't understand it. The whole day, he had the whole Eli connection from I think he went to his camp or whatever. Eli recommended it while he was still there. 6 seasons. They gave this guy 6 seasons. He survived 3 different coaching staffs. Shermer, the 1 year with him, his rookie season, then 2 with Joe Judge, and then year 3 here with Dable. They did give him a lot. Now, a lot of it blew up in their face. They tried to give him Kenny Golladay. That blew up in their face. They tried to give him Darren Waller. That blew up in his face. So they did try and give him weapons. None of them really ever worked. So that part you blame the Giants, but I mean, himself too, his performances weren't very good, and they kept bringing him back. I mean, the outside of his rookie season, the most touchdown passes he threw was 15. And that earned him a $40+ million contract. Where at that point, you just blame the Giants. You don't give a guy, you should have franchise tagged him. You don't give a guy $40 million because he threw 15 touchdown passes in a season. He threw 15 touchdown passes. And I know he went on the road and beat Minnesota. I get that. But you should have tagged him and said, you know what? Because that year was more of an outlier. You should have tagged him and said, oh, because even prior to that year, the turnover problem was a major issue. You should have tagged him and said, you know what? We want to see another year. And then they really should have, hindsight 2020, they should have focused on paying Saquon. You gave away the MVP, an MVP candidate, and you held on to Daniel Jones. I mean, it does not get much more Giants than that. It doesn't. They're so stupid for doing that. Any quarterback in the NFL that's making $40 million can throw 15 touchdown passes by week 9. He threw 15 touchdown passes in a full season, and they're like, oh, this is crazy. Something they've never seen before. And that's crazy coming from a Giants organization too, that has seen some really good quarterback play. Right? They had Eli all those years. They had Phil Simms. Like they've had some. The Giants, they're a storied franchise that is fallen so far from where they once were. But you flip it in the modern day, and now we're with Daniel Jones throwing 15 touchdown passes in a season. Where, I mean, this guy is greatest thing since sliced bread. We've never seen it before. It's just they're so stupid for doing that. That was the end. Once they paid him that money, you knew that was the end. You knew it. He was never going to take him anywhere.
I'm right with you. I mean, that contract there, and I mean, I remember this is before Dak's recent extension. They were making the same amount of dollars down to the T. I'm going to be a little biased here, but you look at Dak and the success that Dallas had, and you look at Daniel Jones and the success that the Giants had, you're like, there's no way these guys make the same amount of money. And there were so many people trying to justify that, Daniel Jones contract. So many quote unquote experts on ESPN justifying it and, why it's worth it and why that it's one of the worst contracts I think I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Next to Kenny Golladay. And I'm going to say that respectfully because everyone and their mother knew you go into a Giants game. Let's just say, week 6 against the Giants with Saquon still there. I'm not going in there to stop Daniel Jones. I'm going in there to make Daniel Jones throw the ball. I'm going in there to stop Saquon. I want Daniel Jones to step up in the pocket and beat us with his arm.
Yep.
And that was the whole thing where a lot of teams, like, you're not worried about Daniel Jones beating you. And the Giants saw the 15 touchdowns and said, wow, this guy, he might go in the Ring of Honor. 15 touchdowns is pathetic. I'm sorry. That's harsh. It's pathetic for a starting quarterback to get a team to the playoffs. 15 touchdowns, like you said, for a lot of guys now, you've thrown that in week 6, week 7. Like, that's not impressive. But Daniel Jones can thank Saquon Barkley when it's all said and done for the payday because that was solely on the legs of Saquon Barkley, and the Giants got what they deserved. Basically, you told Saquon, like, hey, go out, see if you can find something better. Kind of, I took it as snarky, where it's like, you're like a 28-year-old running back. No one's taking you. Somebody did, and now you no longer have the guy who you paid over the guy who might win the MVP, definitely win an Offensive Rookie of the Year. Yeah. So, congrats to the Giants, and I guess it's time to learn Carson Beck, buddy, because that's what it's looking like for him.
And that's another thing too. You bring up just about Saquon, like they got rid of Daniel Jones's best asset, like so they could pay Daniel Jones, but basically Jones's contract in a way ruined himself because without Saquon, we've learned he's nothing. He's nothing without Saquon. And I don't want to just lay that on Daniel Jones because let's be honest, there's a lot of quarterbacks out there that if you take away their best weapon, whether it be a running back, whether it be a tight end, whether it be a wide receiver, they're going to have some struggles. Heck, and by no means am I comparing the two, but you just look at the Chiefs this year, right? You look at the Chiefs this season and Travis Kelce early on was not really the same. Teams were kind of like, wasn't getting targeted much, wasn't much of a factor, and you saw some of the struggles with Patrick Mahomes. A lot of guys, you take away their top weapon, they're going to have struggles. That's just how it is. So, not trying to sit here and say that, like, when you lose your top weapon, you're going to have struggles, especially when, and Tyrone Tracy's been all right, but a player of Saquon Barkley's caliber, letting him go was just not smart. But like that contract basically ruined Daniel Jones in a way because it forced his top weapon out. I don't know. It was not the right pick from the beginning. I hated it. And I just didn't understand. There was a lot of Giants fans out there year in and year out that kept trying to believe, kept trying to say, oh, this is the year. And it never really happened. Look, he had one playoff win. So that's better than any other Jet starter that started over the last 14 years. So I can't kill him too much for that, but he's got more playoff wins than the Jets do in the last decade. But that's about it. That's pretty much it. Now, from a Vikings perspective, it doesn't really mean much for Minnesota. Like you said, it doesn't make a ton of sense. But I like it a lot for Daniel Jones. He gets to sit in that room with Darnold, who's kind of revived his career. Now Daniel Jones needs to, revive his career as well. So potentially can take some lessons from Darnold on how to do that in terms of just trying to turn his career around. Jones is a little bit different though, because he's entering year 7. He's already 20. He's going to be 28 before next season. He's nearing his 30s. So you're looking at Daniel Jones more of like a Geno comeback potentially.
Yeah.
As opposed to Darnold, who is, Darnold is now in year 6 or year 7 now. So maybe he turns it around in 1 year, but Jones is probably more looking at a Geno Smith timeline at this point. But also Kevin O'Connell, very good offensive mind, learn from him. I think it's a good fit for Jones. I don't think he'll ever play a snap there. Doesn't make, from a Minnesota perspective, I don't think it does much, but I guess worst case scenario, if Darnold would to go down, I'd probably take Jones over Brett Rippon and Nick Mullins. So I guess you provide some backup depth, but that's about it. I think it's more for Daniel to just kind of learn and be the start of him reviving his career. And maybe he joins the team and he gets kind of a Mickey Mouse ring. Imagine that.
Oh my goodness. If that's the case, put the guy in the Hall of Fame, since that's all that matters, I guess, is Super Bowl rings.
Yep. Anyway, talk about the Chiefs before we get to our underdog picks. They keep it's like that meme. They keep getting away with it, or they can't keep getting away with it. Another one of these games for Kansas City. They have some like voodoo magic to win these games. That's what it is. You can't make it up. 3 missed field goals. Jackson Powers-Johnson snapping the ball early. They recover the fumble. Chiefs win 19-17 against the Raiders. They win the week prior by 3 against the Panthers. Thoughts?
I know a lot of people hate Mahomes for the simple fact that he wins. I was on that side of, the guy is great. He's winning rings. He's doing his job. I think as of Friday, I might be the biggest Kansas City Chiefs hater. I'm tired of this. I don't get it. For Mahomes' sake, you completely ruined my fantasy year after you shattered Rashee Rice's knee. And you look at their wins. Cincinnati, you get a PI call that was absolutely terrible. A blocked field goal against Denver. You barely beat the Panthers. A play that should have been blown dead against the Raiders, which somehow wasn't. It's just like, at what point does it end? It has to end. I don't know. I'm starting to hate the Chiefs because it's like they can't keep doing this. But there also is a part of me that's just like the good old, if they struggle like this in the regular season, when they get to the playoffs, it won't last that much longer. That is a lie. It's going to. It's not going to end.
It happened last year. They were winning games like this last year. Actually, they were losing 2 games like this. They lost the Raiders last year at home on Christmas.
And the side of things, how we look at things, and a big part of it is, okay, when it all comes down to it, January, December time, how many 1-score games can you win? Because those are what you're going to face in the playoffs. The 1-score games, which side of that are you going to be on? But the way that they're winning these 1-score games, it's frustrating. It's not a team that shows me like, hey, we're going to win another Super Bowl. This is pure luck. John Madden would be sick to see what the Kansas City Chiefs have been able to pull out of their, out of the hat. I'm tired of the Chiefs. I'm ready for it to end. I don't know. That's all I got to say on it. At some point, they can't keep doing this. Somebody has to step up.
No, yeah, I think we're all getting to that point now. And it's not even like they're dominating where you can like respect it, I guess. No. It's more they're winning games that they should have no business winning. Like they had no No business winning that Raiders game. If Todd Bowles actually was not so conservative, they would have lost that game. They should not have won that Denver game. They blocked the kick. I mean, the Chiefs are the only team in the NFL that I think can go through a stretch of games where they block a kick to win the game, have a team miss 3 field goals, still have a chance to win, and in the center botch the snap, hits off of O'Connell's chest when he's not looking, they recover it. Like, they're the only team that can happen. The only team. Literally. And then the Baltimore game all the way. We should have known this from week 1. We should have known it was going to be another one of these seasons where Baltimore almost wins the whole, out of bounds, touchdown, all that. From that moment on, we should have known it was going to be a season where they were just going to sneak out these victories, find a way. And Buffalo was the only team that put them in their place because they're a really good football team. And even in that game, too, the Chiefs, they hung around, but that Josh Allen run was the nail in the coffin. Of course, one of the elite plays so far this season was that touchdown run on the 4th down. But yeah, I mean, it's rough. It's rough. And look, the reality is we could complain, all that stuff. We could be upset. Somebody's got to go beat them in the playoffs. That's what it comes down to. One team has done that, or 2 teams have done that.
Just,
Burrow and Brady's first year.
Just to further my point of hate, I'm about to pull up this schedule here.
They got Chargers, Cleveland, Houston, Pittsburgh, Denver. Pittsburgh and Denver on the road to end the year is tough. That's not easy.
And they're still going to find a way to pull it off. Now we're looking at, oh my goodness.
They probably will. They'll definitely beat, they'll find a way to beat Denver. Pittsburgh, I don't know, Christmas Day, that place is going to be nuts. Especially if Pittsburgh is kind of fighting for like their playoff, not fighting for their playoff lives, but division at least at that point.
Are you ready? Are you ready for this? Okay. Week 1, they beat Baltimore by 7. Isaiah likely is, probably an inch of cleat away from winning that game. Week 2, win by 1 against Cincinnati.
Yep.
That is where the PI. Week 3 against Atlanta.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins, Kyle Pitts back in the end zone. Pass interference is not called. That's how that game ends. Beat the Chargers by 7, Saints by 13, 49ers by 10. 7-point win against the Raiders. Don't remember how that one goes. Tampa Bay, it literally took voodoo magic against a completely injured Tampa Bay team. By the way, I took snaps in that game because nobody else played for Tampa Bay. 6-point win where I think didn't it go to overtime? I think it went to yes, it went to overtime.
Yeah, that was Bulls should have went for 2.
Yes. So, that's the conservative one. Blocked field goal in Denver. Josh Allen owns them. 3-point win against the Panthers.
And they let Carolina back into they went into halftime up 20-9.
Yep.
And they let them back in that game too.
Yep.
So they almost blew it against the Panthers. Like, how do you you should not be blowing games against Carolina.
They have 2 wins this season of double digits. Everything else has been a 1-possession game.
Yeah.
Well, are we counting? Well, they have 3 games, 1 possession. I'm going to say Buffalo since there was a loss by 9. And they have won every one of those games but that Buffalo one. It has to end. Somebody has to end this. I'm tired of it.
Yeah. I thought the same thing last year. I really thought last year was kind of the beginnings of like a not the end, but the beginning of maybe an off year for them where they finished 11-6 and down the stretch they were awful. They had the 2 losses. They had the loss to Buffalo. They had the bad loss to the Raiders. They lost to Green Bay. They lost the 1 game to the Eagles before the Eagles fell off. That was actually, I think, No, the last Eagles win last year was that Buffalo game, and after that they fell off. But yeah, I mean, down the stretch that last year, they lost 4 of their 6 losses came in the final. Eight games? Week 11 to week 18. Was their 4 of their 6 losses. So, we'll say, but I mean, their schedule's not easy.
It's not, and that's why, kind of to what I'm about to say is, if Rashee Rice somehow manages to come back for these, playoffs, let's just say either way, they're probably going to lock up the 1 seed.
Yeah.
Hopefully not, because the schedule is tough. But if they somehow manage to get the 1 seed, Rashee Rice some way comes back second round of the playoffs. Because remember, they were kind of back and forth with his injuries. Is season ending? Is it a possibility? I'm going to have to stop watching football. But I am the biggest Chargers fan next week. One of the 14 that they have. I'm just on the East Coast because I'm rooting for the Chiefs against the Chiefs every week.
Yeah. And you look at the AFC, like realistically, what, in my opinion, realistically, it's probably the Bills that have the best shot, because I don't think Houston, I don't know. I was high on Houston start this year. I don't know. They have the makings to me of a first round exit, wild card exit, especially if they've got to play like Baltimore in the first round. If Baltimore doesn't win that division and the Steelers hang on by a thread the rest of the way, there's no way Baltimore's not going in. There's no way Baltimore's going to go into Houston and lose that game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Broncos, no, I don't think so.
I don't know.
Maybe
we spent all offseason bashing Denver.
No, yeah,
and how bad they're going. They're good. They're a good team.
They are good. They are good, and they should have beat them the first time. I guess it's not crazy, but the only problem with Denver is they can have to get, if they stay the 7th seed, they'd have to get past Buffalo in the first round.
Oh yeah, that's not happening.
That's the only problem. So that's just kind of what I'm looking like. I don't see Denver getting past Buffalo. I could see, and this is just the way the standings are now, I could see the Chargers going on the road and beating Pittsburgh. I could see that happening.
I agree.
Baltimore, I would say, probably beats Houston. So then that would put you in a situation where it'd be Chargers, Chiefs, because it'd be the 6 versus the 1. Chargers, Chiefs in the divisional round. I mean, we'll see next week. The Chargers face the Chiefs, but I trust Harbaugh in a big game, but I don't know. I don't know if the Chargers' weapons are good enough to get to I don't know. The title game, like, is the Chargers with those weapons really going to get there? Especially with J.K. Dobbins obviously now going on IR.
I mean, that's another team. I mean, I for sure was not a believer of, but they are the Chargers in a way. They're very similar to Green Bay, where there's no wide receiver one. It's just we're gonna go with the hot hand that week, and whoever has the hot hand, you kind of put the team on your back, and they've been winning games, obviously with the legs of Dobbins as well. But McConkey and Quentin Johnson, when he does want to catch the ball, he literally spins a wheel. It's either Calvin Johnson or like Jalen Reagor. There's no in between. He just happened to be Jalen Reagor last week.
Yeah.
When Quentin Johnson's catching the ball, McConkey, like I just said, Will Dissly's been very good and reliable out of nowhere.
Yep.
I mean, title game is crazy, but I think they could make an upset or 2, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I do. I think so as well. I think they can go on the road and beat whoever maybe comes out of the North. Let's say Houston goes on a run and they get the 3 seed. I could see them going on the road and maybe beating Houston.
Yeah.
Or if they get the 5 seed and Houston stays at 4, which probably is most realistic, that Houston will probably just stay at the 4 seed. And the Chargers, maybe, let's say the Steelers start to fall off a little bit. Baltimore takes over. Chargers finish with 11 wins. Steelers finish, let's say, with 7 or 10, rather. 10-7, and they jump to the 5. I could see the Chargers going on the road and beating Houston. But to me, it's the Bills. It's going to be up to them.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
I
know a lot of people like the Ravens, but I don't know. I love
No.
Buffalo. I don't. In terms of like, if there was a team that I had to put like all the money on, it would be Buffalo, because they've already. And I know in the past they've beaten them in the regular season, but Buffalo to me is just so much more impressive than Baltimore.
I agree. I
And it
think
pains
this
me to say that.
This just has to be the year. Like for Buffalo, this has everything is
Yeah, I
going your
mean,
way, and you got to do it.
Buffalo get to the Super Bowl and lose. I'm fine with that. 100%.
Yeah.
If Buffalo gets to the Super Bowl, I could not handle them winning it. There's no way. They would need to lose to Detroit, whoever the heck comes out of Tennessee. Please, Sam Darnold. The old-fashioned Sam Darnold, Josh Allen division battles. Run it back.
If some way, somehow they get to the Super Bowl and they win it, there probably will not be a folding table in Upper New York / Canada, since that's really Canada's team when it's all said and done.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It's Canada. Tim Hortons is an advertisement at their stadium. It's Canada's team.
Like
100%.
That's going to be an insufferable fan base. And I work with 3 Buffalo Bill fans as it is. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it.
No, neither could I. I couldn't do it. No way. But we'll see. That might be the only. Now, would you rather see? I'd rather the Chiefs win another one over the Bills.
I'm gonna have to disagree.
Really?
I'm going to have to disagree.
I couldn't. I would have to see the Chiefs. I'd rather the Chiefs win over the Bills, because it's like kind of like it would be like would you rather the Eagles or your Eagles, your those teams? That's my Buffalo. So
that case is going to be like, that's like, would you rather see Philly or like?
Would you rather see the Eagles win or the Chiefs win?
The Chiefs.
Yeah. I'd rather see the Chiefs win over Buffalo, but I would also Eagles, Bills. I'm not going to tune in.
Eagles, Bills. Oh,
Eagles, Bills. I don't even know. Eagles, Bills. I can't stand both teams. I'd probably go Eagles just because I will never root for a team in my division to win the Super Bowl. So I would go Philly, but it would be one of those. I hope both teams lose.
I mean, when I got that year, we got not Green, but that year we got Philly and New England. That was me. Where is there just a possible way where this game gets canceled? Neither one of them wins anything.
See, I was rooting for Philly that year because I hated Brady in New England, and also the whole Nick Foles story was cool, and I could get behind that. But I cannot get behind anything. Philly fans can't get behind anything that team's doing. No, I just can't. The Nick Foles story was a likable thing, and at that time, I never really hated Eagles because I don't know, their fans now are so more obnoxious since that Super Bowl win, and now they're having sustained success with Hurts. Like the fan base back then was not, they were always obnoxious, but now they're so like cocky and annoying. I hate Philly fans with a passion. So that time though, like I was on the Foles train and I hated Brady so much that I was with the Eagles, but this year, no. The only way I probably root for the Eagles would be if the Bills are in the Super Bowl. Other than that, I'd probably take every other AFC team. Chiefs, Eagles, I don't even know. That was 2 years ago. I hated both teams. I was like, both teams want to lose.
It's just, if it came down to it, like, the decision to save the world was on me. It's either let the world in or cheer for Philly for at least the game. We're just gonna have to start it all over, because there's just nothing in my blood that is going to allow me to cheer for Philly. I hate everything Philly besides the cheesesteaks. That's the one thing they did do pretty great for society, and Rocky, I guess. But other than that, I hate everything Philly. Never will root anything Philly. Like, you could not pay me briefcase $1 billion, like, hey, be an Eagles fan for a day. It's just not happening. I don't need money that bad because I just hate Philly more. That's what it comes down to. Pure old good hate.
Definitely. All right, let's go to our underdog picks. Last week I went 1-2, so dropped the record to 18-18, cooled off a little bit. You went 2-1, so you are now 20-16 on the season. So got a 2-game lead back on me. It shrunk to 1 game. Now is back up to 2, so I need a bounce back week. It's a tough one. I guess you want to go first?
Yeah, I
Or
can
how about we
start
do?
it
You want
off.
to do 1-1?
Yeah,
You
that
give one, I'll
works.
give one. All right.
Ah, oh, my stomach hurts. Just because of this team, I have no confidence in this team whatsoever. But looking at the rest of it, we kind of were saying off air we should have did Thursday's games. But to start it off, I'm going to go Mayo Boy and the Titans +6 today.
Oh.
Just the rest of the games are so bad. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going Saints +2.5. Uh, Pittsburgh Pittsburgh -3? Maybe, but I don't know. Cincinnati, Burrow. I don't know what Burrow we're going. Not what Burrow we're going to get. I don't know what Cincinnati team we're going to get.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go Will Levis +6.
All righty. Will Levis +6. You know, I might just write that down. I'm just gonna put Will Levis +6.
That's
I'll,
basically what it comes down to.
and
I
I'll know
mean,
I don't know what it is when we go back and look at these. I'm just gonna put down Will Levis +6. Mayo Boy +6. Actually, we gotta make the edit. I'm gonna go Eagles +3. Eagles +3 on the road in Baltimore. I know it's gonna be tough. I know Devontae Smith might be out. But give me Eagles
Darius
+3.
Slay.
I think they
Darius
win this
Slay is
game.
out.
He's out too.
That is correct.
Eagles. Give me the Eagles. I think they continue. I think they keep rolling. Eagles +3. That's my pick here.
8. 2. It's tough. I'm gonna go Cardinals +3.5. I think they bounce back this week. I know we were just talking about how good Minnesota is, and I mean, I just don't see James Conner rushing 7 times for 9 yards again today. I think Marvin Harrison has a good game. Give me Cardinals +3.5. That's tough, but I'm gonna go with it.
I like that one. I could see them frustrated after a division loss, coming out there and having a big game today. I'm gonna go Patriots +2.5.
I
Don't
looked at
love
that
it,
one.
but to me, the Colts, I don't really like them either. I think last week was awful. I think the Colts are a bad football team that, to be honest, that one win against the Jets does not mean much at all. I think that was just one win against the Jets. A lot of teams are picking up W's against the Jets this year. And I like the Patriots back at home. The Patriots have won me some games this year. They've won me some picks. You know, they're playing better. Last week was bad. Last week was rough, but they were competitive against the Rams. They beat the Bears. They were, competitive against the Titans. They obviously beat the Jets. Drake May has infused some life into that team, giving Patriots fans hope for the future. So I'll go Patriots +2.5 before their bye.
I'm not gonna lie, I looked at that one. I stayed away, but I like that one. Wrap it up. I'm going to go all reliable. We're gonna go with Kirkio and Atlanta +1.
Ooh, yes.
I know that is them to win outright. No J.K. Dobbins today for the Chargers. Atlanta off a bye. I think they
Yeah.
just figure out a way to bounce back. So yeah, give me Kirk and Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm going to take the Falcons as well, +1. They've lost 2 straight. They're coming off a bye. You hear reports that Kirk is playing for his future down the stretch here. If they can go on a run and make the playoffs, you're looking at him coming back. If not, they'll probably just turn to Penix next year. We'll see how that all ends up playing out. They're frustrated coming off a bye. They're at home. This is a huge game for Atlanta. If they win this game, you get to 7-5 before you got to go on the road next week to Minnesota. You need a win like this because you look at their schedule the way it is, if they win this week and get to 7-5, even if they lose next week to Minnesota and they're 7-6, they've got back-to-back games against the Raiders and the Giants. 2 games they should win. That would get you to 9-6 and put you in a position to probably only need to win one of the final 2 against Washington and Carolina to get to 10 wins potentially, to lock up that division and make the playoffs. You can't afford to lose today, fall to 6-6, have Tampa beat Carolina today, which is very likely, and then find yourself in a situation where you got to go to Minnesota next week at 500. So I think they're going to be playing with desperation. I'll go Falcons as well, +1. So we'll see what happens. The most I can make up on you this week is to tie.
Well, Tennessee, I'm not confident in whatsoever. It's either Tennessee or it's either Pittsburgh, but Washington, they just have not looked good. I think Pollard has a pretty decent day on the ground. I can't believe in 2024 I have put my trust in Will Levis, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
Here we are. Week 13 of the NFL season.
Will Levis is my go-to option. Number one option, Will Levis.
Gotta love it. All right. Any closing thoughts?
About 50 minutes from kickoff. Hope you guys enjoy your Sunday. Again, thank you for watching, and hopefully we get a good slate of games today. Not some blowouts. Hopefully our spreads cover. That is all.
Yes, definitely. Talk to you guys next week. Enjoy the games, and thanks for tuning in.